Section 1. The quiet restlessness of the heart. Many people appear fine on the outside. Life is moving forward, responsibilities are being handled, tasks are completed, goals are being pursued. From the outside, everything looks stable, everything looks normal. But appearances do not always reveal what the heart is feeling, because inside there can be restlessness, a quiet tension, a subtle feeling that something is missing, a sense that life should feel more fulfilling than it currently does. Sometimes the restlessness is difficult to explain. Nothing is obviously wrong, yet something still feels unsettled. The mind begins to whisper, "If only this changed. If only I had more. If only life looked different. If only things worked out the way I imagined." The heart begins to believe that peace is somewhere ahead, somewhere further down the road, somewhere after the next achievement, the next opportunity, the next change in circumstances. But the truth is something deeper. Peace does not begin when circumstances improve. Peace does not arrive only when life becomes easier. Peace does not wait for everything to fall perfectly into place. Because if peace depended on perfect conditions, very few people would ever experience it. Circumstances change constantly. Success rises and falls. Plans succeed and fail. Life moves through seasons. But the heart does not have to move with the same instability. Peace begins somewhere else. It begins when the heart learns contentment. Contentment is not complacency. It is not giving up on growth. It is not abandoning dreams. Contentment is something quieter, something deeper. It is the ability to rest internally even while life continues moving. It is the ability to say, "I may not have everything I want yet, but I am grateful for what I have today." It is the ability to appreciate the present moment instead of constantly chasing the next one. Contentment quiets the restless voice that says life is always lacking. It replaces it with a quieter truth. God is present here, not only in the future, not only when everything changes, but here, in this moment, in this season. Tonight, if your heart has been feeling restless, do not rush to fix your circumstances. Instead, pause, breathe. Let your heart slow down and begin to consider a deeper kind of peace, the kind that does not depend on everything going perfectly, the kind that grows from contentment. Because when the heart learns to rest in what God has given, the restless voice begins to fade, and peace begins to settle in. Section 2. Paul learned contentment. Paul wrote something remarkable, a statement that feels almost surprising when you consider everything he endured. "I have learned, in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content." Philippians 4:11. Pause on that word, learned. Paul did not say he was naturally content. He did not say contentment came easily. He said he learned it. Contentment is not automatic. It is not something most people wake up with. The human heart naturally looks for more security, more comfort, more certainty, more control. But contentment is something that develops over time. It grows through experience, through perspective, through learning to trust God in different seasons of life. And Paul's life was filled with many seasons. He experienced hunger, times when resources were scarce, times when basic needs were uncertain. He experienced prison, moments when his freedom was taken away, moments when his future looked unclear. He experienced hardship, rejection, opposition, misunderstanding. He traveled through uncertainty, not knowing where the next provision would come from, not knowing what the next day would bring. And yet, in the middle of all of that, Paul discovered something powerful. A peace that did not depend on comfort. A stability that did not depend on circumstances. A contentment that was not tied to how easy life felt. His peace came from somewhere deeper. It came from anchoring his heart in God. When the heart is anchored in circumstances, peace rises and falls. When things improve, peace appears. When things become difficult, peace disappears. But when the heart is anchored in God, peace becomes steadier. Because God does not change the way circumstances do. His presence remains. His faithfulness remains. His care remains. Even when situations fluctuate. Contentment grows when we anchor our hearts in God. Not in possessions, not in achievements, not in temporary comfort, but in the steady truth that God is with us, that He provides, that He guides, that He remains faithful through every season. Paul did not learn contentment in perfect conditions. He learned it in real life, in difficulty, in uncertainty, in both abundance and lack. Tonight, if your heart feels unsettled by circumstances, remember this. Contentment does not come from controlling everything. It comes from trusting the one who holds everything. Anchor your heart in God. Let your peace come from Him. And slowly, like Paul discovered, contentment will begin to grow. Section 3. Peace that does not depend on circumstances. Circumstances constantly change. Life rarely stays the same for very long. What feels stable today may feel uncertain tomorrow. Success sometimes becomes struggle. A season of progress can unexpectedly shift into a season of difficulty. Moments when everything seems to move forward can be followed by moments when everything feels delayed. Stability can become uncertainty. Plans can change. Opportunities can disappear. Things that once felt predictable can suddenly feel unclear. Even the rhythm of life changes. Full seasons can become quiet seasons. Moments of activity can turn into moments of waiting. Moments of abundance can turn into moments where patience is required. Change is part of life, and if peace depends on circumstances, peace will always be temporary, because circumstances are never permanent. If peace depends on success, it will disappear when challenges arrive. If peace depends on comfort, it will vanish when discomfort appears. If peace depends on control, it will collapse when life becomes unpredictable. But contentment is different. Contentment does not rise and fall with every shift in life. It is steadier, calmer, more grounded. Contentment does not say that circumstances do not matter, but it refuses to let circumstances control the condition of the heart. Contentment is rooted in something deeper than what is happening around you. It is rooted in trust. Trust that God remains present in every season. Trust that His care does not disappear when life becomes uncertain. Trust that His faithfulness is not tied to temporary situations. When the heart learns this, peace becomes steadier. Not perfect, not untouched by emotion, but deeper, more stable, more anchored. The storms of life may still come, but the heart does not have to be shaken by every wave, because its foundation is not circumstances. Its foundation is God. Tonight, if life around you feels uncertain, do not search for peace only in changing situations. Look deeper. Return your heart to the one who does not change. Because contentment grows when peace is rooted in something eternal, not in circumstances, but in God. So breathe slowly, let your thoughts settle, and allow your heart to rest in a deeper peace. Section 4. Comparison steals contentment. One of the fastest ways to lose peace is comparison. It often begins quietly. A glance at someone else's progress, someone else's success, someone else's life. You notice what they have, where they are going, what they have accomplished, and without realizing it, your heart begins to measure. Comparison whispers, it rarely shouts, but its voice is persuasive. You should be further. You should have more. You should be doing better by now. You are behind. Slowly, comparison begins to reshape how you see your own life. The blessings you once appreciated start to feel smaller. The progress you once celebrated starts to feel insignificant. Gratitude fades. Contentment weakens. Because comparison moves your attention away from what God has given you and places it on what someone else has received. But your life is not designed to mirror another person's timeline. God writes every story differently. Some stories unfold quickly, others unfold slowly. Some journeys move through seasons of visible progress, others move through seasons of quiet preparation. But every life has its own design, its own timing, its own lessons, its own purpose. When we compare our journey to someone else's, we ignore the fact that God is writing a unique story for each person. A seed planted in spring cannot be compared to a tree that has grown for decades. Both are part of a process. Both are moving toward growth. But their timelines are different, and that difference is intentional. Contentment grows when comparison loses its voice, when the heart stops measuring its worth against others, when gratitude returns for what God has already provided. When we begin to trust that our own path is unfolding exactly as it needs to. Tonight, if comparison has been stealing your peace, pause, step back, quiet that voice. Your story does not need to match anyone else's. God is not comparing you to someone else. He is guiding you through your own journey. So breathe slowly. Return your attention to the blessings in front of you. Let gratitude replace comparison, and allow contentment to grow again. Section 5. Gratitude changes perspective. Gratitude redirects the heart. It gently shifts where our attention rests, because the human mind naturally notices what is lacking, what we wish were different, what we hope will change, what we feel we do not yet have. And when our attention remains fixed on what is missing, the heart slowly becomes restless, dissatisfied, unsettled. But gratitude changes that direction. Instead of focusing on what is missing, gratitude remembers what is already present. It brings the heart back to what is real in this moment. Breath in your lungs. The quiet miracle of simply being alive. Strength for today, even if the day feels ordinary, even if progress feels slow. You are still here, still able to move forward. Moments of kindness, small gestures that brighten difficult days. A conversation, a smile, a helping hand. These moments are easy to overlook, yet they remind us that goodness still exists around us. And above all, God's constant presence. Not only in the moments when life feels perfect, but in every season. In moments of joy, in moments of waiting, in moments of uncertainty. God remains present. His faithfulness does not disappear when circumstances feel imperfect. Gratitude reminds us of something important. Blessings are not limited to perfect seasons. They exist even in ordinary ones, even in quiet ones, even in seasons where life does not look exactly how we expected. Gratitude does not deny difficulty. It simply refuses to overlook goodness. It allows the heart to recognize that even now, there is still something to appreciate, still something to notice, still something to thank God for. When gratitude grows, perspective changes. What once felt small begins to feel meaningful. What once felt ordinary begins to feel like a gift. What once felt unnoticed begins to feel like provision. Tonight, pause for a moment. Consider the quiet blessings that exist in your life. They may not always be dramatic, they may not always be obvious, but they are real. Gratitude reminds us that even in imperfect seasons, we are still deeply blessed. So breathe slowly. Let your heart soften. Let appreciation rise. And allow gratitude to restore perspective. Rest. Section 6. Contentment does not mean lack of ambition. Being content does not mean giving up on growth. It does not mean losing motivation. It does not mean stopping the pursuit of meaningful goals. Sometimes people misunderstand contentment. They assume contentment means settling for less, accepting stagnation, or abandoning ambition. But true contentment is not the absence of effort. It is the presence of peace while you are still moving forward. You can pursue goals while maintaining peace. You can work hard. You can build something meaningful. You can strive to improve. You can pursue opportunities that expand your life. All of that can exist alongside contentment. Because contentment does not remove ambition, it removes anxiety. It removes the restless pressure that says your worth depends on constant achievement. Contentment simply means your joy is not dependent on the outcome. You still work faithfully, you still pursue growth, you still develop your gifts. But your inner stability does not rise and fall with every result. You give your best effort, but you do not allow success to define your value, and you do not allow failure to define your identity. Your identity is not tied to success. It is not determined by accomplishments. It is not measured by comparison with others. Your identity is rooted in something deeper, in who God says you are, in the value He has already placed on your life. Because when identity is tied only to performance, peace becomes fragile. Every success feels temporary. Every setback feels personal. But when identity is rooted in God, peace becomes steadier. You work with purpose, you pursue growth, but your heart remains anchored. Your peace is not held hostage by results. You celebrate progress without depending on it for joy. You pursue opportunity without losing your sense of worth. You work diligently while trusting God with the outcome. Tonight, if your heart has been carrying pressure to prove something, pause. Release that weight. You are allowed to pursue growth without losing peace. You are allowed to work hard without tying your value to the results. Contentment does not slow you down, it steadies you. So breathe slowly. Let your heart relax. Continue walking forward. Continue building what matters, but allow your peace to remain anchored in God, not in outcomes and not in achievements. Section 7. Strength through Christ. Paul ends this passage with a powerful statement, one that is often quoted but sometimes misunderstood. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. These words were not written during a moment of comfort. They were written after Paul described learning contentment through many different seasons: seasons of abundance, seasons of need, seasons of stability, seasons of hardship. Paul was explaining something important. Contentment does not come from personal strength alone. It does not come from perfect discipline. It does not come from controlling every situation. Contentment grows through dependence on Christ, because human strength has limits. There are moments when our own resolve feels thin, moments when our perspective feels clouded, moments when circumstances feel overwhelming. In those moments, we discover something deeper. Christ strengthens the heart to endure difficult seasons. When life becomes heavy, when the path forward feels uncertain, His presence gives the heart the strength to continue. Christ steadies the mind when life feels uncertain, when questions appear, when plans change, when the future feels unclear. His truth quiets the anxiety that tries to take control. Christ anchors the soul when circumstances shift, when the ground beneath us feels unstable, when life moves through unexpected seasons. His faithfulness becomes the foundation that holds everything steady. This is the strength Paul described, not the strength of controlling every outcome, but the strength of trusting Christ in every circumstance. Strength that allows the heart to remain peaceful even when life is unpredictable. Strength that allows the mind to remain calm even when answers are not immediate. Strength that allows the soul to remain steady even when seasons change. Tonight, if you feel weak or uncertain, remember this. Contentment does not require perfect control. It grows through dependence on Christ. His strength fills the places where your own strength runs out. So breathe slowly. Let your heart lean on Him. Let your thoughts rest in Him, and allow His strength to steady you. Because through Christ, you are stronger than the circumstances around you. Section 8. The Gift of Inner Peace. True contentment is quiet. It does not draw attention to itself. It does not need recognition. It does not demand to be noticed. It simply exists within the heart. Unlike the noise of ambition or the pressure of comparison, contentment carries a calm presence. It does not shout. It does not compete. It does not rush. The world often moves quickly, constantly striving, constantly pursuing, constantly reaching for the next achievement. But contentment moves differently. It moves slowly, steadily, peacefully. It simply rests, resting in God's provision, trusting that what you have today is not an accident, believing that God has supplied what is needed for this moment, even if the future has not fully unfolded yet. Resting in God's timing, accepting that life unfolds in seasons. Some seasons move quickly, others move slowly, but none of them escape God's awareness. His timing is never rushed, and it is never late. Resting in God's care, knowing that you are not forgotten, knowing that your life is not unnoticed, knowing that the one who created you also watches over you. This kind of rest creates a deeper peace, a peace that does not depend on constant success, a peace that remains even when life feels uncertain, because it is rooted in trust. Trust that God is present. Trust that God is guiding. Trust that God is faithful. Peace like this cannot be purchased. It cannot be achieved through possessions. It cannot be manufactured through effort. It can only be received. Received through surrender. Received through trust. Received when the heart stops striving for control and begins resting in God's care. Tonight, allow your heart to slow down. Release the pressure to manage everything perfectly. Release the constant need to measure progress. And let yourself rest. Rest in God's provision. Rest in His timing. Rest in His care. Because the peace your heart longs for is not something you must chase. It is something God freely gives. So breathe slowly. Let your heart become still and receive the quiet gift of inner peace. Section 9. Reflection. What disturbs your peace? Now, take a quiet moment. Let your thoughts slow down. Let your mind step back from the noise of the day. Reflection often begins with simple questions, not questions meant to judge you, but questions meant to bring clarity. So ask yourself gently, what circumstances have I allowed to control my peace? Perhaps it is uncertainty about the future, questions that remain unanswered, plans that have not unfolded the way you expected. Perhaps it is pressure responsibilities that feel heavy, expectations that feel difficult to meet. Or maybe it is comparison, watching someone else's progress, measuring your life against another person's timeline. Sometimes peace is disturbed not by what is happening, but by what we expected to happen. So ask another question. What expectations have created frustration? Expectations about how life should look by now. Expectations about how others should behave. Expectations about how quickly things should improve. Expectations can quietly shape our emotional world. When they are fulfilled, we feel satisfied. But when they remain unmet, disappointment grows, frustration appears, peace becomes fragile. And often we try to regain peace by controlling the situation, trying to fix everything, trying to manage every outcome, trying to ensure that nothing unexpected happens. But peace rarely grows through control. It grows through surrender. So imagine something tonight. Picture placing those expectations into God's hands. The ones that feel heavy, the ones that feel frustrating, the ones that feel uncertain. Not abandoning responsibility, but releasing the need to control every outcome. Trusting that God sees what you cannot see. Trusting that His timing is not rushed. Trusting that His care extends into every part of your life. Peace grows when control is surrendered. Not because everything suddenly becomes predictable, but because the heart no longer carries the burden of managing everything alone. Tonight, let your heart open its hands. Release the pressure. Release the expectations. Place them gently into God's care and allow your heart to rest again. Because peace often returns when surrender begins. So breathe slowly. Let the tension leave your thoughts and allow the quiet to settle in. Section 10. Closing Prayer. Father, teach us the quiet secret of contentment. Not the kind that depends on perfect circumstances, but the kind that grows from trusting you. When life feels uncertain, anchor our hearts in you. When the future feels unclear, steady our thoughts. When plans change and expectations shift, remind us that you remain constant. Your presence does not change when our circumstances do. Your faithfulness does not fade when life becomes difficult. So teach our hearts to rest in you. When comparison whispers, remind us of the life you have given us. Remind us that our journey is not meant to mirror someone else's path. Quiet the voice that tells us we are behind. Replace it with the truth that our lives are guided by your timing. Help us appreciate the blessings already present. Help us notice the goodness already surrounding us. Replace restlessness with peace. Replace striving with trust. Replace anxiety with quiet confidence in your care. Help us release the pressure to control every outcome. Help us release the burden of trying to manage everything alone. Teach us to rest in your provision, trusting that you supply what we truly need. Teach us to rest in your timing, believing that nothing in our lives is outside of your awareness. teach us to rest in your care, knowing that the one who created us also sustains us. And tonight, as we prepare to sleep, quiet every anxious thought, slow every racing mind, settle every restless place within our hearts. Let your peace cover our thoughts. Let your presence fill the silence of this night. And as we rest, remind us gently that we are safe in your hands, that tomorrow does not belong to fear, it belongs to you. Fill our hearts with lasting peace, the kind of peace that remains even when circumstances change, the kind of peace that only you can give. In Jesus' name, Amen. Matthew 5:5. You're blessed when you're content with just who you are, no more and no less. That's the moment you discover something greater. You become owners of what truly matters, things that cannot be bought. 1 Timothy 6:6-8. Now godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. Hebrews 13:5. Don't be obsessed with money. Instead, live content with what you have, for you always have God's presence. For hasn't He promised you, I will never leave you alone, never, and I will never loosen my grip on your life.